Good morning and welcome to the Point. It is Friday, December 18th, 2020. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, GBN TV channel 7, 11 and 20, and good morning to the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9. This morning we usually reserve it for open line, but we have matters of national importance that we haven't gotten much time to discuss during this week because of Senate sitting. So we are going to continue that discussion here today and leave open line for another time. This morning I have joining me as my guest is Attorney General of Grenada, Darshan Ramdani. Good morning, Mr. Ramdani.
Good morning, Blossom. It's always a joy to join your program, except that we still have our little cloud hanging over Grenada.
Exactly.
Good morning to all of your listeners and your viewers in Facebook land, wherever else, and I'm hoping that everybody is having a good day. Thank you for having me on your program.
No problem at all. So, Mr. Ramdani, let's get right into the legalities. The hot topic in Grenada for the entire week actually has been the latest developments as it relates to COVID-19 and the recent cluster that has so far brought our active COVID-19 cases to 45 and our overall count to 94. I want to look at the legalities of this situation and how this may unfold when it comes to legal ramifications. Let's start there. Overall, we have, well, first I've seen a news release coming from government speaking about considering, and I have also gotten the sense that sandals is also, they haven't said it yet, but they could be going that route coming from the news release they issued yesterday. So my question is, does any party have route to consider or go forward with legalities following this present situation?
Well, thank you for that question. This matter is a matter which is currently being examined by the Ministry of Legal Affairs. You would have seen the government press release that was sent out in relation to what the government considers has been the effect of the statement made by a particular media house. I will not get into the details beyond that the government has made that statement, and we are examining currently what our next step will be. I want to remind the media of two things essentially in relation to this aspect of the question. First of all, the media have their own general responsibility to ensure that when you publish material which is accurate and fact-based. Even if you're going to express opinions, the opinions must be based on facts. And you can't come up with an opinion and speculate that if that assuming that something is factual and starting to make your opinions, you may cross the line of keeping yourself protected from a lawsuit. So generally speaking, all media practitioners, I know, I myself have been a journalist, trained journalist in the past from the University of Guyana, and I worked in several jurisdictions as a journalist. I was on television. I was an editor of a magazine in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So I've done my share of writing material, publishing material, speaking on television. And we were always very conscious, every media house I work with, we're always very conscious of having in-house training to ensure, and we would always have a lawyer, a legal person who we could bounce off articles with. So it was a constant practice in the media houses I worked in, that if we were going to publish anything that had any element that it may likely offend someone, and that's the starting point. I mean, the question of what is defamation is a broad one. And so the starting point is that if you are going to publish something of real serious importance and it may offend someone, then that should alert you. That should be your red flag. And you should immediately decide, you know what, this is going to be in a script, because you try not to ad-lib these things if you can. Ad-libbing as a talk show host and as a journalist opens up very dangerous cans of worms, right? Dangerous things. So you have a script and you put it to your legal person or some journalist who is experienced and trained and is aware of these things. And that person will guide you, say, yes, you know what? This is how we need to strike out these things. Let's frame this a different way. Let's ensure that when we say we have reliable sources, that we do in fact have sources. And we're not simply looking at a Facebook post and using that as our source. I have constantly seen one political leader in a different country saying that everyone is saying something, and he uses that statement to then go on to say what he wants to say. Now, we as media practitioners, well, you as media practitioners, you need to ensure, as a general rule, that you are aware when you're crossing that line, that you have genuine sources. When you say that they are credible, then you must have a reasonable basis, not your own thinking that that man is always a credible guy, but that people can reasonably assume he's credible, reliable, and then you can go on and use that as a basis to make statements. But you have to still be careful that you may then be stating a fact. And if you're stating a fact and it is not a fact, and you don't get past the fair comment defense, you and I know what we're speaking about. I hope lots of your members can know this. Some things you can fairly speak about, but it must be based on fact. Yes? So that is a general thing. I said there's two aspects of this answer. The other aspect of this answer is this. We are in a global pandemic, and whatever responsibilities the media houses would generally have, you should be acutely aware and more sensitive to the need to be responsible, so that you don't panic society, so that you give responsible journalism, that the debates and the discussions are fair, they're balanced, and they're not designed to be sensationalized. They're designed to keep the public informed. Well, attract people to your platform, yes, definitely. And you can write in certain ways. You can bring those persons who will get the viewership increased. You can do those things, but the media now has a greater role, if ever, to play in the fight against COVID-19. And so I will urge the media houses that whenever you're writing something, look at your headlines. What are your headlines seeking to achieve? Selling the newspapers? Yes, you want to do that, definitely. But at the risk, and I'm now theorizing, I'm not pointing to any media house here. I'm saying, is it that a media house will want to just say what they please just to have people come and buy and look? Or are they playing their role in society? You're putting your leaders under scrutiny right now. There has never been a time in the last, I think, several decades in Grenada here, in the region, in the world, where leaders, and I'm not saying only politicians, I'm talking about leaders in the health sector, leaders in the police force, leaders in social society generally. All of the leaders are coming under greater scrutiny right now. And so you too are leaders. The media houses are leaders in their own sense. They drive the conversations lots of times, and you have a responsibility to ensure that you do so in a responsible manner. So what redress the government will have, what redress a hotel may have, or any other person, that will be a matter for the lawyers to advise their individual clients. And lawyers are not supposed to go in the public domain and say that this is what I've told my client. That is not something you do at all. In fact, you'll be committing an ethical breach. And I'm sure, Blossom, you don't wish me to commit ethical breaches on the program. I will give my client the requisite advice. And I'm sure those on the other side, whichever side they are, will have their lawyers to give them the requisite advice. And they will take it from there. And we will see how this unfolds in the next couple of days. I continue to urge whoever it is, the other side, all of us, I think, are on the same side. We are all on the same side when it comes to the fight against COVID-19. Let us not be distracted by statements. I mean, yes, we have to protect. Individuals will be required to protect their own interests. Where I sit, we sit not to protect the interests of the government. We sit to protect the interests of all of the people of Grenada. So this is where we are. And so it is the larger picture that we have to see. And there are many aspects of it. So I am calling for responsibility. I am calling for people to be fair, to be balanced, and to ensure that the next periods of life through this process, this Christmas period, this season, early next year, we will get through this. We will bring this. We will bring this under control. Yes.
Fingers crossed. Speaking of the ethical part of this entire scenario, how can government find a balance between sharing information with members of the public and letting us know what needs to be happened, what needs to take place, and protecting business places? I put it that way because following the news release from Sandals yesterday, speaking of the information that government has disseminated so far, and some of it are untrue, how can government find a balance to avoid legal ramifications from what it tells the public and the information it shares and how much it shares?
Yes. Well, you really can't speculate what is going to happen in the future and imagine scenarios and then put answers to them. We have to look at what has happened in the past. And government's reaction is to provide information to enable people to continue to protect themselves, to enable the health authorities, the police department, to be ready to deal with the issues. And if the health department believes that a particular outbreak, cluster, whatever you may call it, number of cases is related, I'm trying to be as careful as I can here, be related to a particular organization, then the criticism that the government will face is if they don't go as far. You would have noted in the past, I believe, that there were cases and you were being told an entity in the South, a business entity in the South. This is the kind of language that has been used. On this occasion, a particular hotel has been identified. Well, if you look at the difference in the numbers before and now, and you look at the statement that the fact that one particular entity has been identified, you must reasonably come to the view that the health authorities have some reasonable basis, yes, some reasonable basis to believe that this entity is really and truly involved, yes, that they have a reasonable basis to do so, that they have a medical basis to do so, the numbers and all of that, and that with that in mind, and having regards to the numbers that we're dealing with, not 1 and 2, but we're dealing with a lot more numbers now, that it may not be a matter of good governance not to say to the public that this is the particular hotel that is involved, because one of the immediate matters of urgency following whenever we have identified a case is to contact trace. Now, contact trace cannot be done by the health authority sitting down and looking at a crystal ball or going on a computer and looking at something. I don't wish to make this a light conversation. Contact tracing has to be done with the assistance of the people who are in contact with each other. Now, I already know that there have been individuals who have come up voluntarily on their own initiative and have told the health authorities, I was in contact with a staff member of the particular. What do I do? Now, our resources are limited. And if we did not have this element of having members of the public act in a responsible manner and to themselves cooperate, volunteer information, and the volunteering of information is very crucial to this process. Where we would have had one case in the past in relation to any particular entity, we immediately dealt with that, and we felt that there was no real reason to go out into contact tracing throughout the community. And so I believe the decision then to not disclose location would have been reasonable in the circumstances. Where you're dealing with hundreds of possible cases, I mean, possible contacts within the particular hotel, it becomes a much more health-related concern, public health safety issue. Yes? It's a public safety issue. To ensure we don't have so many more cases, to let the public know, well, listen, if you are in contact or related with this particular hotel, this is what it is about. We want to work with all of the entities. We are not in the process of trying to harm anyone or affect anyone's business. This is not the intention at all. The intention here is to take such reasonable steps so as to ensure that we are able to manage this process on the way forward. I have actually seen, well, I'll probably come to that later, but I think this is how and why the health authorities have decided, in this case, upon their reasonable belief to make these statements. Yes?
In a news release issued overnight, government in updating us on the figures of positive and active cases. And so one of the outstanding parts of the release that I noted was where the ministry noted that 7 of the guests at Sandals who were swabbed for the test left the island before receiving their results, and they have been deemed positive for COVID-19. And this is reflective of what happened early up in our COVID response, where 1 individual who was positive left the island, and now we have 7. Is government considering legal actions against these 7 people? Do you have an update as to what happened with that case early up in the year? I believe it was March, April, and what took place legally with that case?
No, well, you did use the word legally there to tell me that I am relevant to the answer. But I will say to you that this is a question that I will leave for the health officials to properly address. There's probably still a lot of investigation going on as to where these persons have gone to. I did hear bits of conversation in relation to it, but those are matters I cannot speak to. I will leave the proper source, the proper agency in the government to give more information on that particular matter. But as a general thing, I will say that we are all concerned, and we're not only concerned about Grenada, we are all global citizens, and any good government will be concerned about persons who would have left here positive. I know in the last case, the one early in the year, that those other countries were notified and informed as to the person who went out. I cannot see any reason why the similar courses have not yet already been followed. I'm not saying that they haven't. I simply haven't gotten that information, and I will leave it to the proper channels to provide that information for the public in an effort to continue to give full transparency on this matter.
Understood. On that note, Mr. Ramdani, let's take a quick break and then come back and continue the discussion as this cluster unfolds. And then you also have an update to give us in relation to you personally, but we'll get into that on the next side of the break. This is To The Point on GBN and Classic FM. We'll be right back.
Breaking barriers. Going beyond the ordinary. Examining the stories beyond what meets the eyes. GBN gets to the meat of the matter. Join us on GBN Television, Classic Radio, gbn.gd, or on Facebook via your smartphones and other devices. We take you beyond the headlines every Monday night at 8:30 p.m. We are GBN, rated #1.
Feel good facts.
Help prevent cold and flu by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. That's the time it takes to remove most germs. No soap and water? No worries when you've got alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Remember, if you have flu symptoms, do the right thing and stay at home to avoid giving it to others. Remember, you can be infectious up to a week after developing symptoms, so rest up and take it easy.
Stop the spread of germs that can make you and others sick. Cover your nose and mouth with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. If you don't have a tissue, use your elbow. Wash hands often, especially after coughing or sneezing into a tissue.
From Monday, November 2nd to Thursday, December 31st, GBN's Christmas Caravan will be blazing the trail of goodness across Grenada. Join us as we journey daily to find the hottest deals this Christmas season. Win prizes from our partners. Get recipes for your favorite Christmas treats and bust a tune in the Christmas Karaoke Fun segment. It's GBN's Christmas Caravan. Weekdays from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Live on Classic Radio 105.5 and 105.9. GBN Television Channels 7 and 11. GBN's Facebook page and GBN's YouTube channel. Your mid-mornings will never be the same.
The Christmas Caravan is brought to you in part by Hubbard's and the Food Fair Supermarkets, Kittens Healthcare, Sisson's Paint, and Bryden and Miners and Ace Hardware.
Welcome back to The Point. We're speaking with Attorney General Darshan Ramdhani as we continue to look on at the COVID-19 situation in Grenada as it unfolds. Mr. Ramdhani, before we get back into the specific details of this recent situation, I understand that you have, let's call it an announcement to make this morning in relation to your position as Attorney General.
Well, thank you, Blossom. Yeah, I had hoped that when I would have made this announcement, we would not have had COVID-19 issues at least at this level to deal with. I thought we were doing quite well throughout the year, and we would get into our Christmas period and our end of year matters and so on on a much easier note. And this is why this announcement is really a difficult one for me to make at this point in time. Things are already set in motion and fixed, but it is sort of a very difficult announcement to make. When I started as Attorney General last year, January, my initial period was for a period of 1 year, at the end of which I was asked by the government to stay on, and my decision at that stage was to continue to stay on until June of this year. And we, of course, by March, we had gotten into our pandemic in Grenada, or epidemic cases were there. We had declared a state of emergency. And so I did indicate to the government I would stay on for a period of 3 months to September end. Of course, I'm now sitting here, but I must say that the government and we have agreed that I would return to my office, having given 2 years of dedicated service. So I'm basically making an announcement that at the end of December, I would no longer hold the post of Attorney General. But I will continue to answer your question you're about to ask. If you're a lawyer, you have to predict the questions. I mean, you might get it wrong, but you have to predict them. I do hope to continue, and the government and I have already discussed this, that provides advice, render assistance in an advisory capacity. We're still working out the details of that after December the 31st. So it has always been my approach to continue to provide public service to the government and people of Grenada. Even when I was in Guyana, I was doing public service as well, when I was in private practice as well. So I've been here since 2003, started as a senior crown counsel, and I've been with the government on and off for a very long time in Grenada. So as I said, it's a difficult decision or a statement, put it this way, a difficult statement, announcement to be making at this time when we have our little cases. But I am sure I am just one element in the process of the fight against COVID-19. There are lots of competent, capable persons and who will be able to continue the process and provide all of the necessary support for the government, including your media house and all of the other persons out there. We are in this collectively. But I am grateful for you to give me this opportunity, because I wanted to at least say publicly that my stints have come to an end on the 31st of December. But I will still be around to provide some support in various ways. Yes?
What would you say has been your greatest achievement or accomplishment as AG over the past 2 years?
I think as Attorney General, providing legal advice to government and cabinet and ensuring that your advice is, how to put it, we have had a ship that has sailed on evenly calmed water. Even when it was rough, we managed to keep our ship afloat. Yes? And my small role in that process is what I consider my achievement. That I have a government who was prepared to give a Guyanese, people continue to say, I am a Grenadian, but come from Guyana, and people continue to say that. So I let me say it for them, that this government has given a Guyanese person an opportunity to serve the people of Grenada. It must mean that they repose immense confidence in my abilities to carry out this job. And at the end of the first year, journalists, you didn't, Blossom, you didn't, but other journalists did come to say to me, I heard that you will be let go and that you come to an end. But the government continued to repose that confidence in me and did ask me to stay on. And we have gone through this period of the epidemic. Yes? Last year, Christmas, we put legislation in place, I think regulations legislation, that gave the police the power to enforce drink and drive laws. I don't know if you recall that. It seemed like 10 years ago. But we had these drink and drive laws in place for a while, but there was no mechanism that had been regulated to allow the police to do the actual testing and using the test results to go to court and prove that someone was drinking and driving. Last year, December, we put that regulations in place to allow them to have their breathalyzers machines operationalized, and they can use the information, the printouts to go to court and prove that someone had been drinking and was under the influence when they were driving. And I would have thought that when I would have left the job, that would have been one of the significant things I would have spoken about. That pales in comparison to what we went through this year. Yes, I remember late March when we were attempting at the drop of a hat, well, maybe not even a hat, at a brick, because a hat might take longer to get to the ground than a brick, a stone. At the drop of a stone, we had to mobilize at Legal Affairs and to pass laws, issue a proclamation, draft a proclamation for the Governor General to issue. And to get that in place, and amidst of all of that, a number of my colleagues called to assist, to criticize, and I'm thankful to them for that. They said we got it wrong, we weren't doing the right thing, we should go here, we should go there, that's how we should do it, this is how we should do it. And sitting where I sit, we have to make decisions. Ultimately, whatever decisions Legal Affairs make will have to rest on the shoulders of the Attorney General as the person ultimately responsible for whether they got it right or got it wrong. I'm not going to say that we got everything right at all. History will judge whether we got it right, but we are relatively, if we were having this conversation 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks, is it 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks or last week? Let's say 10 days ago, we could have all been smiling here and not talking too much and saying, look how well Grenada has done. Yes? Look how well we have done. We look around to the rest of the world and we see how they have badly managed this. And many countries didn't even get the legal structure right. Yes? Whatever has happened now, we are still investigating that. But the legal mechanism, because you keep hearing people say that if the various entities had followed the protocols, and that word must be the most famous word apart from COVID-19 itself, as the most famous word that has come up in the 2020. Protocols. Everybody's telling you, follow the protocols. When you close this program, you're going to say, and please follow the protocols. Yes? So we are hearing that if the various business establishments, and the particular one that we spoke about earlier, that if all of the protocols were followed strictly, perhaps we will not be here, because we recognize, look, I had a personal urgent matter that I could not avoid, and I traveled to the United States, to New York in October. Yes, it was a frightening experience to get on the plane. My family looked as though they were going to be in tears when I left the home. I was going into the belly of the beast. Yes, a country that has all sorts of world-class attorneys and governments and whatnot, and putting structures in place, and they had so many people dying, getting infected every day. I went up there. They didn't have any law or regulation that required me to self-quarantine. I came out of the airport, and there was a taxi waiting for me because I told my family not to come to pick me up. So I had on my mask, my face shield, jumped in a taxi. I wiped the seat in the taxi with my, whatever you call it, I have them somewhere.
The wipes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the disinfecting wipes. The taxi man looked at me. He had a shield, of course, on and so on. And we got to the house, and my brother, they had a room separately in a certain place. And I went and I stayed there for 4 days. And then when I finished that 4 days, and there was no law requiring me to do that. After I spent that 4 days there, I went and I took a test. There was a health center not far. I came out, made sure I made contact with anyone. And I walked to the health center and I did a test, came back, went back to this room and stayed there again and got my result the next day. Only then did I come out of my self-imposed quarantine. Look, I saw some Facebook posts of individuals who were pool tested. Now, I don't know if you know exactly what is pool tested. I'm told that the health officials have been explaining this process.
Yes, they
pool
have.
Testing
but go ahead for the people who may not have heard.
Yes, is that the government and the health department don't have, the resources are limited. And so what we have decided to do was to take batches of 5 persons, yes? And you get samples from each one. You take them individually, you put them in there, keep them individually, label them, you have their names on them, and then you take those 5 samples and you take pieces from each one, and you put it into one testing, whatever you test it in, and you test that. So literally, for one test that you're doing, you're testing 5 persons' samples at the same time. So in a pool, the batch testing, yes? And if that test come back negative, then all 5 persons are cleared. So you didn't have to do 4 more tests. Full stop, you're done. And so you save 4 test kits. Yes? However, if the tests come back positive, it means that either one person in that 5 is positive, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5. Yes? That's what it means. So when you are in that batch and you are told that you are possibly positive, yes, they have not given you a false result yet. What they're now saying to you is that they now are going back to individual, but immediately they will tell you to self-isolate. And so you're told to self-isolate right there and then in quarantine, more or less. And then they're testing now the individual numbers now. They pick up each test tube back again, each swab, and they test.
Mr. Ramdan, you appear to be frozen, and I am no longer hearing you at this point. Okay, so let's take a quick break and see if we can sort out what's happening here with Mr. Ramdani. We are speaking. Okay, he's back.
Here.
There you
Right.
are. You're back.
Where did we stop at?
The batch testing. You were explaining the results and batch testing.
Right. So when the batch comes back positive, it means one or more or all of those persons are positive, and they then have to retest each one of those samples, the swabs that they did, against your name now, because they want to know which one of you, or whether all of you or some of you is a positive result. Persons have been told that they're possibly, we have had a situation where a batch came back positive, and immediately the health officials told everybody in the batch, it is possible you're infected. Listen to the language. It is possible you're infected. Now, I can't tell you all the things that were said, but I saw someone on Facebook came on and he said, I was told that I was possibly infected when they did their test. And I was told to self-quarantine, to self-isolate. And then 4 days later, or a couple of days later, they came back to me. He said, my family was all frantic. Everybody was agitated. Then a couple of days later, they came back to me and said, oh no, you have been cleared. And he said, how could they do that? But I mean, just think it through. If you were in a batch that came back positive, we had to do something immediately to protect everyone. So I'm going to ask people, please, this is the standardized way to approach this. We literally can't test 100 persons. And if you test them today, you'll have to test them tomorrow. And if you test them tomorrow, by the time you get to the 10,000th person, you might have to start back with number one again, because the other 90 persons are still moving around, and everybody who tested yesterday might come in contact with somebody walking around. So we have to approach this in a practical manner. And the batch testing is a recognized WHO, the approach of the World Body, saying this is an approach that you can take to use your resources sensibly. And so if you are told that you are in a batch of persons and you are likely to be one of those infected, then the responsible thing is for you to do your part. I am sorry. I regret that you have to do your couple of days. I'm happy if at the end of the couple of days you are told you're negative. But that's not the fault of anyone that, as is being suggested, that you got a false negative, yes? Or, sorry, a false positive. Yes, that's not a false positive. What is happening there is that the medical authorities are using their resources in terms of best practices, testing a batch, finding a positive, and deciding, well, we have to go back to individuals. But in the meantime, we need you to stay put, lest you are one of those with it. So yes, I understand the agony. Listen, I have been through the agony. When I came back to Grenada, I had to go into quarantine. Yes, I had to self-isolate. I had to stay in one place, wear a geofencing watch, do a test at the end of 4 days, wait until I got my results before I cleared. And even then, Blaza, I was in an apartment, a self-contained apartment on my property, which was vetted before I came in. Even then, I asked my family, I said to them, the result have shown that I'm clear, but I will not come back into the house if you are uncomfortable. So medically, scientifically, I was okay. But you don't know all the answers. And in addition to that, you're dealing with other people's emotional health, stability. And so I asked them, and I was thinking, they were going to shake their head at me and say, you better stay where you are. they did say to me that you could come back into the house. So
You got the go ahead, the green light.
yes, I was not only asking to be cleared by the medical people, but I think we started this conversation by asking what I think was the greatest achievement.
Yes.
You don't take on these jobs to have great achievements, Blossom. These jobs in the public service is to provide public service. Yes? If we get through the end of your term, your tenure, your service period, and you have done the best to your ability, and you've provided service which is honest, which you believe was your competent best, and your employer and the government and the people have decided that, you know what, we still want you to give some more assistance on the way on the outside when you're on the outside. I think that is sufficient for me. I can ask for no more, or I can claim no more achievements and whatnot. I have done what I have done. Yes, and I'm very grateful to the government and the people of Grenada for allowing me to be able to provide public service continuously. Yes, so thank you, and thanks to the government and the people. But I'm sure you have a few more questions you want to ask me.
I do, but I'm also going to get to some of the questions from our viewers and listeners. The phone has been ringing for a little while. We have questions on the social media as well. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start with this Facebook question in relation to the 7 guests of Sandals that have left before receiving their results. Somebody on Facebook is asking, how could the guests leave without getting the results? Isn't a negative test result required for boarding a commercial flight, or did they leave by private jet?
Again, I think I did mention earlier when you yourself asked this question that I don't have all the details at legal affairs where I sit. Sometimes the investigations continue, and before they get to me to say to me, well, these are the legal issues we want you to address on, there's protocols in place, and so I will defer this question to the health authorities or perhaps the PR department of the government to come back and provide the answer to this. Yes, but I am sure they are looking at this and may have already addressed it, and it's simply a matter of informing the public.
But do you have the information? Because to the best of my knowledge, well, I guess it would be the airlines, that you require the negative test to come into the island, but to leave Grenada, it depends on the country that you're going to if you're required to do the test or not.
I actually, when I left, I had to get a test. Yes, so I went to do my PCR and I left, and I would have thought that everyone going anywhere would have been required to go and get their test. But again, I will leave this specific answer for the health authorities to say that.
No problem. Yes? Understood. Let me go to the phone lines. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Morning.
The person that on giving this information, I forget his name, Dr. Ram, Daniel, whatever his name is. Now, he seems to be, and he ought to be very witty. I won't explain that to him because he's witty enough to understand what I mean by witty. What I'm asking myself, I think you're supposed to be an advisor, or maybe legal advisor possible to the government. One is, did you give them any advice as to what to do when this likely fiasco in Sanders was about to occur? In other words, did you give them information that they should publish it, or they shouldn't publish it, and what is likely to happen if they publish it, and what is not likely to happen if they didn't publish it? Now, because I feel that in our interest, publishing it could have adverse effect, whether negative or positive, and you could analyze what could be negative and what could be positive, because you are a legal-minded person. I'm not. Now, when I look at it, sometime back you made laws for Grenada, and maybe, I do not know, people are saying, it could be the legal authorities or some of them, that the law you made didn't have any teeth. I wonder if you advise the government on this one now, before they go to the public and saying what happened in the thing. If they could have covered it out, and what is the legal implication if they did cover it or if they didn't cover it up? Okay. Because would it affect the economy of Grenada, seeing that Sandals is one of the largest, and that brings in a lot of money in Grenada. I will hope you answer the question.
Thank you, caller. Mr. Ramdani?
It is. Let me see how I can answer it this way. And for the call, I am not a doctor. I am the Attorney General. I'm a lawyer. That's what I am. We have a thick code, criminal code, as big as this, right? If you look at it, it's a lot of pages, and it sets out a lot of laws. You must not assault someone. You must not wound someone. You must not steal from them. You must not break into their houses. You must not kill anyone. You must not commit a sexual offense, and there are many of them. You must not commit fraud by false pretense. Lots and lots of laws. I am not hoping to make this light, but I want to make a very stark point, a very in-your-face kind of point, that laws are put in place, but people continue to breach them. Yes, you only need to go to the magistrate's court to see that on a daily basis how many persons are charged for criminal offenses. Yes, so is the question ever going to be, well, did those persons who drafted those laws get it right? Did they draft sensible laws? People are still breaking them. Yes, that's what it is. Yes, as I said earlier, I can't say all of the little details that I've been advising the government throughout the process. The government has been taking, in my view, decisive action. They have been taking transparent action. The criticism would have been had we not, had the health officials not identified what they believe to have been the relevant entity, the criticism would have been, well, why did you not say so? We all knew, or we all thought we knew. Yes? When I'm saying that, I'm speaking from the public standpoint. Look at Facebook. So the gentleman, I understand. I share your concern on this matter. Yes, we continue at Legal Affairs to provide what we believe to be the best advice to the government on the way forward. But none of this management that we have to do is singularly one entity in government. It is all of government that is coming together, and very often with civic society as well, NGOs, non-governmental organizations coming together with government that guide and shape. Yes, because on the COVID-19 committee, there's not only governmental public officers on that committee. You have persons on that committee from private society, sitting and providing guidance and advice and recommendations to the government. And so we're not only listening to the legal department. The government, usually the legal department simply says to the government what is right and what is wrong legally. If you do this, these are possibly the legal consequences. Which one do you want to take? You might have consequence one if you take a particular action. If you take a different action, you may have consequence 1, 2, 3 to deal with. And this is the kind of guidance that the legal department does. But there's a lot coming together before the government makes a decision. And what is coming together for the COVID-19, I can tell you, we're also listening to civic society, international scientific community, looking at the experiences of the rest of the world. We have never had in Grenada, as far as I'm aware, anything similar to COVID-19 as an outbreak, and have had to manage it. Yes, where a lot of our livelihood, as the gentleman said, that this particular entity is a large income earner for the country. And so the concept here is that we have to be extremely responsible in the way we manage this process. Now, I will say this, Blossom. I talk a lot. I think you recognize that. But I will say this, yes? I hope that I make sense. I will say this, that we hope to get this right. Yes, we hope to get this right. And there's nothing that we can do where 100% of the population is going to say, well, they got it right. You're going to get people who will say, no matter what you do, And so our starting position is not to look for approval or not to look, I mean, we want people to cooperate. We want people to participate in the process so we can have it done smoothly. But we're not taking an action. The government is not taking an action with the thought in mind, I hope everybody happy. No, we hope everybody will be protected. Yes? We hope everybody will understand, even if you don't agree with it. And so whilst we may take action that you don't like, it is for the greater public good. And it's a work in progress, and we're hoping to find the right balance. So on the way forward, we can minimize the number of cases, prevent the spread of this virus, and come out at the other end, still breathing and still alive with an economy that can feed and support the people of Grenada. That's the hope. And that's what we're working on.
Somebody on WhatsApp is inquiring, how could you be the Attorney General and information is put out to the public before you know about it?
Well, I am not sure what particular information the caller is speaking about. And not everything, if there are 5 cases today or tomorrow, they don't have to run that by me. I am not a medical person. If we have any ramifications in relation, and we've already discussed the protocols of how information is going out. The Attorney General's Chambers, Legal Affairs, it's not the first time we are advising the Ministry of Information how you dispense information. So it's not today we will go and say every time they have information, they understand what their protocol is. We've already built an institutional mechanism how information is to be dispensed to the public. And the relevant stakeholders play their role at the relevant point in time. Yes, I am sure that they have seen every public officer say from time to time that I am not the appropriate body who will provide an answer for that. Yes, you must have seen that I am not the relevant authority, or even though I may know of this, it is not my role to tell you of this particular matter. You will have to wait for the relevant ministry to come forward and make their statement when they are good and ready for that. Yes?
Another WhatsApp question, can a victim, or can someone, I don't like victim, can someone who was affected by this sandals cluster take legal actions or take government to court as a violation of their civil rights and failure to protect them?
I will say this, that the government continues to act in a responsible manner. The government continues to take all the necessary measures, precautions, guided by the medical and scientific community, and as well as the legal department. And so whatever action the government is taking, the government stands firmly by the view that we are acting in good faith and that what we are doing is responsible and as part of good governance. So if you ask me if anybody can bring a lawsuit against the government, I will say to you, we have had a lot of lawsuits coming against the government that have been struck out, dismissed. You will only see the ones that people want to hold on to when they say, look, another case is lost by the government. They don't tell you how many are struck out and dismissed and costs awarded against the other side. Yes? So people can bring actions and they can claim that their rights have been, that the government has, they can do all these things, but you will have to analyze what we have done. We, in Grenada, I know quite a lot of Grenadians have boasted about how Grenada has handled the COVID-19 crisis. I mean, prior to the 10 days now, yes, we might have to revise some of that, at least in the way we speak. And you would have been calling your friends in New York and tell them, look, you guys don't know what you're doing over there. Take a page from our book over here. But I will say this, that we are fortunate. We are fortunate because no matter what legal mechanism, no matter what legal structure you put in place to manage anything, it depends on people. It is the individual, it is the people, the persons who are going to have to comply or not. I'm sitting at the gas station, yes? And I'm waiting for gas, my mask is on. And this is this week. And one man sitting in a car, he looks very well dressed, gentleman, with another guy come up to the car. They're both without masks, and their conversation is criticism of what is happening in Grenada and the COVID-19 and so on. So I could not help myself. I wound my window down and I said, gentlemen, would you mind if I step in here a moment? They looked at me. I said, criticize all you must. Please criticize. Please continue to complain. Say how they got it wrong. And I pulled my mask down briefly and I said, I may be one of those that you're talking about too. I put it up back. And I said to them, but when you are done and finished criticizing, or even in the middle of it, please follow the protocols. Put on a mask. I said that to them, put on a mask. I try my best not to stop and tell people to put on a mask. It's very difficult. Yes? You're taking all of these measures, right? We all know it's so crucial. Yes? People are calling and they're offering criticisms from time to time and asking questions. Yes, please do. Please continue to do so. Lay blame where you think you want to lay blame. Tell us we got it wrong if you must tell us we got it wrong. But when you're done, or even in the middle of it, put on your mask. Socially distance. If we are going to get through this, you need to put on your mask. So don't stand and talk in public about how the outbreak is somebody's fault, well, and then leave it there. Do your part. Do your part and ensure that you can assist us. We can put all of the most perfect law. Look, there's a very perfect law. It was on the 10 Commandment list. Thou shalt not kill. Perfect law. Yes? Thou shalt not steal. Perfect law.
Let's take this final caller, but I endorse your statement that while we quarrel, we need to observe the protocols as well. Good morning, caller.
Greetings, and how are you?
I'm good. How you do?
We are trying to hold on in this time of management of the COVID-19 epidemic. And I think this is what we're all about here that the Attorney General is talking about. And this is what the government is trying to do. But just to say here that the commandments, correct, perfect laws. And most central to that is the law. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. So I hope the governor, the Attorney General, and everyone will also look at that. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. In terms of the COVID-19 management, as it happens now, we are in a state of uncertainty. I hope not panic. We must not panic. And as he rightly said, the government have been saying they have to balance about survival, the welfare in terms of our health and the economy. Now, do you think, Mr. Attorney General, before you leave on the 31st of this year, and I hope you can have an interest in maybe accepting if you're asked to be reappointed. There are two streets which are presently blocked off in St. George's for commercial purposes. Having these new regulations, I would say in terms of 10 persons at least for funerals and social gatherings, do you think it is wise to have this continuation of this arrangement going into the Christmas holiday? Do you think so? I would like for you and your government to reassess that. It is equally, it's already difficult to have 6 feet distancing going in the regular stores and hardware and retail supermarkets, but much more to have this blockage and Tom, Dick, and Harry just come in there, whether they have masks and so on. In this heated, congested place, there are many issues which I think we have to address. I'm just happy for this opportunity just to raise this point. These 2 streets that have been blocked up for this commercial selling, do you think it should be continued, especially for Christmas holiday?
Okay.
Thank you very much and all the best to everyone. Merry Christmas, should we say, and let us have a spiritual strength going into the future, the new year, and to face whatever it beholds us. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramdani.
You know, Blossom, this caller is making or asking very valid questions. This caller, like a number of other Grenadians, many persons are asking these questions. And the answer to it, as we began this period, remember when we began it in late March, there was a complete lockdown. And at that stage, we only had, I believe, about 7 cases or thereabouts, and the numbers were rising a little bit. People were moving around. And we felt it was a state of emergency. Now, the government is still analyzing this situation. You have heard the Honorable Prime Minister speak earlier this week in relation to his approach or the government's approach on how we're going to approach dealing with this. We have had more cases now, and some persons will say, well, you had 7, you locked down the country, you get 30-something, why are you not doing the same? I will say to those persons that our ability to understand the management issues involved with this process is coming with months of experience at today's date. So whilst in March we had shut down for 7 persons, we are in a different environment now where we know much more as to how we need to approach management, how we need to contact trace. We have more structures in place, persons who are ready right now, sitting, going around doing contact tracing. We have testing kits now, which we didn't have then. We have the support of the international community now with specific guidance that we didn't have then. So to address what the caller is saying, I want to put that context that what we are doing to enforce the protocols is designed to minimize the spread of the virus. There, on one hand, we need to balance normal life. Normal life is where we all go at Christmas time and we shop, or we look at people shop and shop, yes? And we smile and say how they're spending their money and they'll be broke for Christmas, and we say all these things. And on the other hand, we have a cluster of cases, we have the risk of spread, and we have to manage that. And if you allow people to move about normally, it is going to affect our ability to manage this process, to keep it checked. I know we all want to go out and attend some social function somewhere, whether it is in somebody's home as part of a gathering singing some carols, or whether it is at some establishment with your friends. We all would like to do something, as we are social. We are social beings. We like to socialize. And so businesses are going to be affected. And this is part of the difficult decision for any government. Any government. I mean, yes, we need your feedback. We need your criticisms. If your criticisms are going to be the harshest that you can make it, please do that too, so that we can listen to you, so we can take that on board when we are making a decision. Do we need to continue to enforce these protocols, change them? Do we need to escalate them? Because every day that we have woken up right now, in the last 5 days, we have heard that there are additions of cases. I went to an establishment, a business place in town yesterday, and as I was there, I heard the radio on, and I heard Minister Steele speaking. I don't know if it was your program or some other program. He was speaking about COVID-19 and the management. And the thought in my mind was, oh my goodness, wherever I go, I'm listening to Minister Steele. He's always speaking. And that is the task. We're always trying, the government is always trying to provide information. But the job is not simply talking to the public. We have to literally go and do what we need to do. And so to the gentleman with these concerns, your concerns is shared by the government. We are continuing to agonize how we manage this process. But we have to take decisions, and we take those decisions on the basis that we protect the wider public, to mitigate, minimize the spread, to prevent the spread, and to protect all of Grenada, not only the people, but the economic and social health of the country as well. So we continue to balance that. Yes? I can't answer the question in relation to the Sabbath, but we all continue to observe it in our own various ways. Yes?
Mr. Ramdani, thank you so much for being our guest. We are out of time and robbed some time of the next program, but I just want to thank you so much for shedding some light, some legal light for us. And as you vacate the position of Attorney General, I just want to say thank you so much for always being readily available to not only me here on To The Point and Good Morning Grenada, but also to the GBN Newsroom. So thank you so much, and I wish you all the best for your future.
Thank you, Blossom, and thanks to the people, their listeners, and the people of Grenada, and to the government of Grenada. I will always be providing public service in my life. And I hope that it will be meaningful public service and that something good comes out of it. So thank you very much for the opportunity again. Have a good day. Enjoy the season. Please stay safe. Observe the protocols.
Thank you very much, and you do the same. Have a good day. All right. Attorney General Darshan Ramdani, we thank him so much, and thank you, our viewers and listeners. Janelle and Joseph, I've robbed you of 5 minutes of Christmas caravan. My apologies. I'll give you back at some point in the future. Have yourselves a safe, productive weekend. Like Mr. Ramdani said, observe the protocols and continue to be safe and healthy. Have yourselves a good one, and I'll see you Monday, God willing.